All right. Well, I think we should start. Yeah. So Deb, who's trying desperately not to look at the computer screen,
Right.
but she should now, because this is Deb Shubat, the
Hi.
fruit guru extraordinaire. I'm Cindy. Hi. I'm going to be doing a lot of the close-up camera work, and you'll be hearing my voice chiming in here and there, so you know who that voice is. So Deb, tell us a little about you.
So I'm Deb Shubat, and I'm a fruit farmer here outside of Duluth, and I have about 400 fruit trees sitting out in the field, and most of those are now in fruiting stage, which is really fun because it takes a while, especially when you're grafting, because that adds another couple of years onto the length of time before you get a fruit on your tree. And I've been teaching at UMD and teaching horticulture, grafting, botany, all kinds of different things for about 33 years. And I just got old enough to retire.
Yay!
So, yay! So now I'm a full-time farmer. And that's me. I believe that if you guys have questions when you're not at this workshop, we can send my email to them, or maybe it already is.
We could send you
there.
there.
Okay, so if you have some kind of question or whatever, you can contact me and I can tell you the answer.
So Cindy,
At the farmers market in Duluth, so that you can come there if you want. All right,
That over there.
we're gonna start. I put my rootstocks and some initial grafting in this vase to keep the roots nice and damp. And when we're gonna use a rootstock, we have to make sure that this root stays nice and damp. So it's going to go in a plastic bag. Actually, if you want to just sort of rotate, I put out towel. That's because when I recycle grocery bags, sometimes they aren't completely waterproof.
Ah.
At the bottom, you'll find that if you go through. Okay. So that gets wrapped around. And you want to know where your root starts at the bottom. So don't forget where that is, because that marks where you're going to plant, and you don't want to stick your, you want to put your graft right at the root line. So here's the root line right there, okay? And your soil is going to, when you plant your rootstock in the actual ground, soil will come about to where my finger is, okay? If you're doing a commercial grafting job, then it's going to go probably within this amount of space on your rootstock, okay? However, if you're a beginner, you start up here because that gives you all this amount of chance to get a good cut, okay?
Yep.
And you can keep whatever scrap is left of your rootstock to practice your cuts on, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So this is tied in, and I know where the root is. I'm just going to secure this. This is a little piece of parafilm, and that just kind of sticks to itself, so that's nice. Okay, so on your rootstock, this is a whip and tongue graft that we're going to do. We're going to
So
Can you see over here? Okay.
yeah, so we have there
We,
we go.
we're gonna put this cut, I'm gonna start a little high, just so that you will probably do the whole same thing. I understand that people up the shore are much better at using a knife than the general population of the
Yeah.
city of Duluth.
Townies don't know how to use knives.
Yeah, so so when I teach this to townies, they get very nervous about how to use a knife. This cut, the cut that's going to occur in both the rootstock and the scion is going to need to be very flat, a very flat cut, okay? And that's so that the two cuts will slide together without an air space in between them, okay?
Mhm.
The main problems I see with using a knife is people will push straight down and then out, okay? What that gives you is a nice dish, okay? That
Dish is not good.
not good.
We want a flat plate.
Flat.
Super flat.
Yeah, because of that, those two sticks have to come right exactly together, okay? So I'm going to start up here, and what you notice on this twig is that this is a bud right here. Buds occur at nodes. This is an internode. There's another bud, okay? So this is an apple root, which means it's apple genetics, and apples are alternately leafed, okay? So buds are alternate. So, but you do have an internode right here. In this stretch of the wood, all of the fibers are aligned, okay? They all are up and down, okay? And really easy to cut through. If you try to cut at a bud, the bud will have fibers that are pointed in this kind of direction, coming out towards the bud from the pith out, okay, in that direction. That means if you cut into that, your knife's going to have much harder time making a good cut, okay? So I'm just going to stand up because I always think
Use good Boy Scout,
like we want to have a circle of safety.
Circle of safety around the knife.
And that's
No little kids with their faces looking close at the knife.
Okay. So set your knife in at a real shallow angle because you want a long cut. And then notice the handle of this knife. This is for people like my age who have some maybe knuckles that don't like to work very well. You have to have a really good grip on this knife. And then give it a straight away from yourself cut. This is not the correct cut exactly.
Tell me why.
Because I got stuck right here. And if you see that little bump, that's going to mess you up. So just go back a hair and try another one. Okay? What I want to do.
The bud. Can you want to show them how that bud messes up that surface? Because it's right
here.
Yeah, that's where the bud is.
So
and you can see the fibers all twisting around. You don't get nice, clean wood there.
And right here, if you look, there's kind of there's the outside of the bark is brown, and then there's a thing that looks like a marshmallow layer right there. That's phloem, and right in between the phloem, and this is the wood in the center, is cambium. That
little dark green line.
There's a dark green line, but it's real hard to see. And if you have watched your PowerPoint, I hope you have watched the PowerPoint, then you can see like a microscope view of this. Okay, so that is a nice clean cut. It goes from this end to this end, and that's what you want. So if you practice with a twig of an apple, twigs of apple are relatively dense material, okay? So you have to practice pushing just to know how hard to push. In the center of this is a pith. pith is your primary growth. The most important part of this cut is from here where you start to the center, okay? You can also make a graft if you don't get all the way to the center. And it's more of a bark graft than the technically a whip and tongue, okay? So at this point, this part of this twig is going to end up drying up and falling off. So that part doesn't matter what it looks like, okay? And you can cut it off now or later. I'll fold it into the waterproofing is fine, okay? And we set.
So what are you doing now?
I'm doing my second cut.
Second cut.
Mm-hmm.
What do you call the second cut?
This one is the cut that's going to run the length of the stem.
Okay.
Not the whole length, but that's what you're aiming for. I have put the knife right perpendicular to the growth of the stem, and I'm wiggling it, okay? I also have fingers that bump into fingers, and that's so that if there's a slip, I will not cut my hand off.
That would be bad.
That would be bad and bloody, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah, no.
Don't want to do that, okay?
So pressure, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
Pressure and wiggling, and let the knife do the work. Don't push really, really hard, because at about this point, your twig is going to want to start splitting all on its own, okay? And it goes fast. It suddenly will just really, really cut quickly. Okay, so this takes very little pressure right now to move it.
Okay.
Because we're in a zone where all the fibers are parallel.
So you're in the inner node now. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Cool.
Okay, so this is the exact same cut, the same angle you're going to do on your scion. Okay, but you're doing the top. This is the top. See, your roots are down here. This is the top of the rootstock. You're going to do the bottom of the scion with the same cut.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll put this one aside. When you get practiced up at this, you're going to be doing them really quickly. This is for John Swenson. He ordered it. And what's this?
Yeah, I want you to get right here. So yeah, there we go. So we've got the wood.
So I'm going into the inner node again. This is the bottom part of the scion. Scion is the tree that you want in the long run. Okay, right here is the pith, right there. This part will end up just falling off. I'm going to line up across using the pith as a marker to the center of the stem, and wiggle the knife in like so. You will also notice that the scion is a thinner piece of stem than the rootstock. Here's the rootstock, here's the scion. This does not matter, okay? Because what we're lining up is this little line that's right underneath the bark here with that little line that's right underneath the bark on that side. So only line up one side when you put these together. All right. I'm just going to clip the tail off of this one. And then.
So the tail is everything above your little tongues.
Okay. You can push with a finger. See that push? That opens up the gap in your rootstock. And then you're going to line up, push all the way in. Oopsie, oopsie.
Oopsie.
I just ripped it.
So
that's going to happen
now
to you guys
what happens?
Too.
Oh my golly gosh.
No big deal.
No big deal. Okay, good.
Next cut.
Woo.
Do the same thing over again. Okay, so we're to the center, and you can see a bud right here.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to skip that because that part is not the big deal here. and wiggle it. Some of your cyanwoods are going to be a lot thinner, and that means they're easier to cut, but it also means it's a little easier to rip. If you have a bud in the way, take it off, because that will force the grafting materials off. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So what we're doing is sliding the tongue of the scion in the tongue of the rootstock, and we're lining up
just this edge.
Yeah.
Right there.
The center line.
Okay. This actually gives you a chance of healing, you know, here, there, and there. So it gives you several places that can heal just on this side. Okay, so
show us the other side.
This is the other side.
Well, that's all not lined up.
It's all not lined up because it won't heal except if your cambium hits cambium.
Okay.
Okay. So cambium's hitting cambium. This is your most important operational edge right here. The other side of this just needs to be waterproofed, and it will eventually get new bark over it and all that. It'll heal all up.
What's that?
This is a rubber band that is in a strip instead of a loop. Okay.
Huh?
And that's a grafting band. Grafting bands are the way to pinch this graft together so that all of the scion, that's the cut edge of the scion and the cut edge of the rootstock, are well pushed together. Okay, you're gonna leave a little end of this. See that? And tie the knot. To do that, put your thumb on the rest of the rubber that's wrapped, okay? And go over the top of your thumb, and I'm holding it with my finger here in the back so it doesn't all undo. It'll undo several times on you if you don't just pay attention.
Yeah.
And then you grab the tail, put it between your thumb and the rest of the wrapping, just like this, kind of like you're tying a balloon, okay? And then roll your thumb upwards like that and let go.
It stayed.
You have a knot, okay?
Ooh.
Okay, now.
What if mine doesn't do that?
Then try again.
Okay.
Okay. This is parafilm. And parafilm not only waterproofs, but as you put it on, it stretches. Okay, so that's really fun. And we tried to make sure that you got some extra parafilm so that you can play with it. All right, all the cut surfaces have to be covered, because the main reason, besides not getting your cambiums lined up, is for a failure of a graft, is that things dry out. Okay. At this point, you can also nip off the tail. That
doesn't need to be there.
Doesn't need to be there. You want to be kind of not too violent when you do it, because you could open up your graft.
Oh no, the parafilm just snapped.
Here's the magic of parafilm.
Oh.
Is you just push with your thumb, and if you have blood flow, which I do,
yay,
it will heat up and just heal to itself, just like that. Okay, so covering those cut surfaces, ta-da, and then we're going to have another cut surface here, because we don't want to have too many buds up here, because this takes a while to completely heal, and it will perceive spring and start to try to elongate these buds right here, okay? And we don't want to have a whole bunch of little branches growing all at once, because the number of xylem vessels that have healed together down here is going to be relatively small, okay? And this twig and the rootstock won't be able to push water into more than probably 3 to 4 buds. So what you do is count up 1, 2, 3. If you want to, you can call that one a fourth. This twig has a kind of an odd spacing on it's not evenly spaced buds. So I'm leaving a little stub here. Now, when you take your grafting class, not your grafting class, your pruning class, it will say don't leave a stub. But there's a reason to leave a little stub. I cut this in the middle of the internode space between the nodes, and a little bit of a stub, because if you cut too close to this bud right here, then eventually when your parafilm falls off, which it does that all on its own. That's why this kind of grafting material is popular. You can graft with anything like duct tape, electrician's tape, any of that stuff, but it won't rot and fall off on its own. You'll have to go down your rows of trees and actually cut off all of these grafting materials if they don't automatically pop off on their own. So these are made to, as soon as this stem starts expanding in the spring with growth, the parafilm and the grafting band will fall off. Okay? This is your completed graft. There are other things that you can do. One of them is to paint this with an elastic, like it's kind of like latex paint, but I will show you that later. Okay, so at this point you get to put a label on it, right?
Oh, I'll just remember.
You won't remember.
Oh.
Okay, you never remember. No, because yes, memory has a way of failing. And when your neighbors and your mom and your mother-in-law in some cases taste this apple, they're going to say, oh my God, that's so delicious. We need this. What is it?
What kind is it?
We don't want to graft because we want apples right away. So we want to just buy a big tree. Then you won't be able to tell them. So we have label here, and what this is 447 on M7. M7 is the rootstock. This is a semi-dwarfing rootstock, and that means that the final height of this tree is probably going to be right about 15 feet. Okay. Rootstocks, if you looked at your PowerPoint, are described in percentage of standard. And this one is between 50 and 60% of standard. All right. 447, and we can put an actual name on that now because it's been named Frostbite.
Yummy. I love frostbite.
And this one's been around, being used in the Minnesota breeding program since 100 years, okay? And it's used to put really, really great flavor into 2 apples like Honeycrisp, okay? So it's been around, and it's in the breeding program to put different kinds of flavor notes into the bigger apples. But this one is a medium-sized apple, like that, okay? Not huge, totally yummy. All right.
So I saw a question come through on the chat. If you have a question, go ahead and unmute your microphone and just ask us the question, because those comment questions go by our screen real fast and we don't see them long enough. So I saw something.
Okay, see this? It says it's a Sharpie. It says it's permanent marker.
Liars.
They lie. They lie.
Liars.
Okay, this works great if you're indoors all the time. Okay, so if you wanted to put in big black letters frostbite on here, you can put it in a Sharpie, but this is going to last well when you store your rootstock in your refrigerator until May. Okay, but once you put it outside, this disappears in the sunlight, and this, which is a very soft pencil, will stay on as long as the label lives. For in the field, you want to get yourself a metal label or 2 metal labels. And what I do is write on the metal label, and I put one on the top of the tree, like right here, okay? And then I put another metal label with name on it. And with metal labels, you push in, okay? So it leaves a big dent with the name. And that means even if whatever you wrote on it with a pen or a pencil or whatever rubs off, you can read the dents. You can always read it, okay?
Do you know where we can get any of these locally?
I don't know where you can get them locally, but if you go online,
Yeah.
you can find them, okay? So the second label I plant, when I plant the tree, always on the same side of the trunk. So this will be always on the north side of the trunk or always on the south side of the trunk.
Okay.
Underneath about 1 inch of soil, right where the trunk goes into the ground, all right?
Why do you do that?
Because it can't get lost.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you would dig it up?
Yes.
Oh.
And you put it in real shallowly. You don't tie it to the tree. You just lay it in the soil, and then this much soil over the top, like just about 1 inch, and scratch it off and look for that label, and just about 100% of the time you can find it.
Okay.
There's always, the dog or, other kinds of weird problems that can happen, but
so
yeah.
If all of your other lovely signage goes away, that's your backup.
Yeah.
The one buried at the base of the tree.
I do hear about people who have, the deer came and pulled the labels off my trees.
Yeah, they
So,
do that.
Yeah, they do that. So your other defense against the insanity of not knowing what your tree is to make a map.
Yeah.
Okay, and say, this is my yard. I already had a Honeycrisp, I already had a Harrelson, and this new one, which is Frostbite, is going to be the third one in line, and draw a picture where the house is, where the garden is, where the trees are, and keep that in a safe place. Don't let the dog chew it up. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So,
quick question.
Questions?
Yeah, could you maybe talk about a few of the other rootstocks that are good ideas for like extreme northern Minnesota?
Yeah. So one of the rootstocks that you could get for this project is Antonofka.
Look at the laptop.
Oh,
you're talking to them, Deb.
I'm talking to a big sign on my.
Yeah, there you go.
I think I'll just. I don't know if those guys can see that little.
No, they can't.
Okay. Antonofka is like the hardiest one, and it's a 90% tree, so it's almost full size. Super hardy, from Russia. One of the good parts of this is that Antonofka is an edible tree, edible apple tree. So if you're growing this tree and something happens that kills the scion. Sometimes it's weather, sometimes it's bunnies, you don't know. Then whatever grows out as a sprout that's below the graft to take over the top of the tree will have a somewhat edible apple to it. It's not real spectacular, but it is edible, and a fairly large apple. Okay, so Antonovka is a really good choice, but this one is also real tough. M7. The only time when I've ever had any problem with the roots is if there's no snow. Okay. So if there's no snow and it gets to 20 below, then you have trouble with the real hard frost going really deep, and that can bother a lot of trees that are relatively new. Okay. If you have an old tree with a really nice big root system, then they can usually survive it, no problem.
Do you find that mulching with wood chips helps kind of mitigate that?
I find that if you put your wood chips on deeply enough to actually insulate the ground, then you're giving a lot of trouble for your tree. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Because the amount of wood chips you're told to put as a mulch under your tree is more for allowing really benign, helpful, useful fungi to be growing underneath your tree. Okay, the kind of fungi that are really good as what are they called? Ecto and endo mycorrhizal fungi. So so wood chips are good in some ways. Okay, so they're good for giving you some nice soil right underneath the tree, but they're not good in that wood chips have too high of a carbon nitrogen ratio, meaning that as they break down, as the fungi and bacteria break them down, they're going to steal nitrogen from your tree. Okay, so that means if you're going to put wood chips or things that are a brown material, we'll simplify it, things that are browns that have too high of carbon nitrogen ratio, you also have to fertilize your tree. And that best time for that's first thing in the spring.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
There's got to be questions. Come on, folks.
Are both of those rootstocks equally good in kind of any soil type?
They are they have a wide acceptability in different kinds of soil. Yeah, they're not specific to glacial till or to clay. So it's kind of a broad range. Yeah, if you wanted to get a good soil test, the place you're going to plant your tree, you might be able to match closer. There are hundreds of kinds of rootstocks out there. It's just that not all of them are hardy enough for up here. You have to match your rootstock with your climate pretty well, and not just the soil type.
All right, Deb, were you going to show us another, unless we have questions, you guys go ahead and bark out questions. I think Deb was going to show us another grafting technique. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Before you do that, can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Yes. Hello. I'm just curious about the rootstocks we have today through this workshop and where those came from, and how they were grown and harvested.
They are from a place in Oregon called Willamette Nursery.
Okay.
And most rootstocks are bred specifically to be an apple rootstock. So like an M7, you would not want to eat that apple. It will produce apples, but they're little and hard and green, okay, and taste nasty. So so you're not going to want to just grow these rootstocks as the apple that you're going to harvest. Antonofka you can, because that one is an edible type. Did you want to know if what chemicals were used on them, that kind of thing? Is that the question?
Oh, I guess that's not really what was going through my mind. I was just curious about like the process of growing rootstock and if these were
So
from
the process
this area.
of growing rootstock is cool. It's a cool process, and it's called layering. Okay, so if, for instance, you have a rootstock that's a spare one that doesn't have an apple on top of it already, you can propagate that rootstock yourself. And you can do it by getting a big load of compost, and you plant it in the ground, okay? Pile compost around the trunk so that it looks like a cone, okay, right around the trunk. And then you let the buds that are on the lower part of that rootstock grow out. And what they'll do is they'll grow right through the compost. And wherever they're growing out, they have a tendency then, because of that is interpreted as soil by the tree, it will start putting out roots also. And so what they do in the commercial nurseries is just line up a bunch of M7s and pile compost and soil against the trunk, let them sprout out, and then go when it's time to harvest, which is generally November, maybe even December in Oregon, and they will cut off the sprout that also has roots growing on the bottom.
And we can actually see that on one of the rootstocks. If you want to pull one of those out, David, switch it over to the camera.
I don't know if you can.
There we go. So you can see there's
This is the cutoff.
That was cut. So there's 3 little internodes there where you can see the buds sprouted and started growing roots. And then they cut below it, and it grew a little rootstock. And
so these roots, by the way, didn't come from the bud.
Oh, they didn't. I'm sorry.
No. They are associated with that because that has more meristematic activity.
Okay.
But this is an adventitious root.
Ooh.
Adventitious. So it was stimulated just because of having that soil packed against it.
Okay, cool. That's why we have an expert here, so I don't give you inaccurate information. All right.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
Okay. So in other words, you can make a whole bunch of your own rootstocks and graft away. Most rootstocks in the olden days were from seeds that were gathered from people that had cider outfits. So you squeeze all your apples for cider. If they're apples that were locally adapted, that were grown there, most of those seeds are going to be growing a hardy tree. And so you collect the seeds, you plant them in the ground in the fall, wait till they come up in the spring, and then use those for standard rootstocks. Okay?
All right.
Yeah. You want to do
any other questions before we move on to a new grafting technique?
I'll do a question.
So how long until you know whether your graft is taken?
Good question.
Okay, so what you do is you take your tree that you just made. Okay?
Switch it back to the phone picture, David. You change our feed. There we go. Okay,
Okay.
there's your grafted tree.
Take your grafted tree. You're going to put this in a plastic bag because
Whole thing in a plastic
you
bag.
don't want it to dry out. Make sure that if you have paper towel around the roots that it's still damp.
Yep.
Okay. Not soaking, you know, so it's a ball of water, because that can be bad. So just damp, and then put it in the fridge until May 1st. Okay, May 1st, maybe even longer. That gives this tree a time to heal cambium to cambium.
That's going to be happening under this paraffin.
Right, cambium to cambium before it could be planted outside. Okay, then your choices are in May sometime to either put this in a pot, like about a 1 gallon pot, and let the roots grow out, and then keep it close to your house, like on your patio, right outside your door, so that you know no critters like voles are eating it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually mid-June or possibly before, you will see these upper buds start to actually leaf out.
What if you see buds down below the graft?
So the buds that occur below the graft, you have two choices. One is, if you're not sure about your skill as a grafter, and you don't know for sure that this top is going to grow perfectly the way that your teacher said, then you allow these buds that will grow from underneath the graft, you allow one of them to grow, and you break the rest of them off.
Okay.
And that one that you leave grow, that one you're going to keep waiting and see if this actually takes off. If it does, then you cut it off. And if it doesn't take, then you use that same rootstock for grafting the next season. And you have 2 seasons for grafting. One is August. That's growing season graft, when everybody's alive and it has real leaves on it. And the other one is bench grafting time, which is now. Okay. You can also graft scions onto your trees that are currently in your yard in April.
And that's called field grafting, right?
That's field grafting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell the proper timing for field grafting because you will see the buds on the tree that you currently have alive outside start to stretch.
Mm.
So look at that bud and you'll see it get bigger.
And that's when you do the field grafting.
It's now field grafting time.
All right.
And around here, it's more like 1st of May instead of April. Sometimes we get a really nice warm April. If you're going to use the parafilm to put over your graft out in the field, you need to wait until it's warmer than 50 degrees or it won't stick.
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Questions?
Nope. Do you do a cleft graft?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay. What do we need here?
I think I have everything except a plastic bag.
I'll go grab one.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so we detached something.
We've lost the phone, but we've got you.
All right, so we have the roots in here keeping damp. All right, and cleft graft is something that you can use on a big stem of an apple tree, okay, or the main stem of an apple tree if you want to top work it, which means change the variety of tree into another dip variety, okay? But in this case, I'm just going to show you how to do it on a little smaller scale. So I'm going to an internode between 2 buds, and I'm just going to clip it off with a clipper straight across, okay? And you can see that, and that little spot in the very center is pith. All right. And we will, in this case, aim for the very center, lay the knife across it, and
Touch those fingers so you don't slip.
wiggle
Wiggle, wiggle.
like so. See, the knife is going in.
Yeah.
I'm letting the knife do the work, not pushing very
It's
hard at
starting
all.
to split there.
And then it starts to split on its own.
Yep.
Okay, see that? So you've got that cut made. And then instead of making that one long narrow cut, you're going to make this, oh, I can't do this, into a wedge. Okay, with a sharp point.
Like a little triangle.
Slightly triangular, but not hugely. Okay. When you see this, see that brown pith?
Yeah.
The brown pith means that this part of the scion did not harden off in time in the fall. Okay? That brown pith. So the brown pith tells you you might not have a good graft out of this piece. Okay? I'm still going to demonstrate it with the piece because we have it.
So if they have one like that,
if you
they
see a brown pith,
not use it?
then what you're going to want to do is go down in that direction on the twig to where this twig is older. Okay? And you know that as a twig grows, this is an older piece of wood than this. Okay? This was the last piece to grow in the summer. All right? So then we're going to insert this wedge. I'm going to make it just a little thinner because that rootstock is not that fat.
So show us on the scion exactly what you're going for.
Okay, so I'm going to go for is a wedge-shaped piece. It can be straight across if you want, this size. Because on a fatter stem, you're going to put two scions into the same crack. Okay, one on one side, one on the other, because we only line up one side. All right, and then sometimes this rootstock just doesn't like to open up. Oops.
We're dancing over here.
We are totally dancing. I'm going to make another cut on this.
I'm taking my Dramamine.
Take it because, man,
Okay.
this is not social distancing.
No, we are not social distancing.
So we're just hoping everybody's healthy.
So she's opening up the crack in the rootstock and sliding the scion in.
Correct. And what you want to do is get it in.
Okay, show us.
And
that.
covered. Okay. And we're going to line up right here the bark so that this is right here. This is the cambium. And this is the cambium. And the cambium of the rootstock is touching it. Okay.
So you get the cambium of the scion and the cambium of the rootstock to touch.
They touch each other. All right. Now, in reality, eventually, I'm going to pull this back apart, recut everything, and do a different graft because the pith is brown. Okay. Whenever you get a stem off of your tree or your neighbor's tree or whatever, and it still has leaves curled up, dead leaves on the top of it up here, that means that the tip of that stem did not harden off all the way. Okay, because the leaves didn't drop off. They were too young. Okay, so that's going to be a good clue for you to go to the bottom of the twig, the part of the twig that grew first.
And use that as
And
your
use
scion,
that as
not
your
the tip.
scion, not the tip of that one. Yeah. Okay. So you close, try to pinch here with the grafting band and put your thumb in the way. Go over the top of your thumb, around a second time behind your thumb, like that. And
Show
roll
me
it
that
off.
again.
Oh.
Oh. So,
Okay.
all right. I'm going to try to get a better shot. Okay, so you're taking that graft. This is how we close off the grafting
How
band.
you make it knot.
Okay, so
Okay.
thumb on the graft, over the thumb, and then
Now we're going to go under the thumb.
under the thumb.
Then you let go.
Let go of that tail, and now
You
roll that
your
thumb
like
up.
this.
Voila!
Ta-da.
You've
Okay.
got a locked grafting band.
Great.
Sweet.
And then this is the thicker grafting tape
Which
here.
is what most of you have, because that's what we gave you, was the grafting tape.
And if it breaks like this, you do the same thing. You push it with your hot thumb. This is another reason to do bench grafting indoors where it's warm.
Yeah. Aside from it's just more comfortable.
It's more comfortable. Okay, and then pull it, stretch it, seal it around the twig, just like that. And then save a little end so that you can go to the top. And seal that too. Okay. Sealed and sealed. And then what's your next step?
Anybody? What's the next step? Perhaps the most important one.
Keep it moist and put it in the fridge.
No, not yet,
No,
David.
not yet.
Oh, no, what?
You're going to label it.
Oh,
Label it, label it, label it.
David hasn't learned that one.
David.
we use maps.
Now remember, if you're using a label that you know is temporary, and you're only going to use that label while this is in the fridge, then you can use a Sharpie. But if you want this label to remain on there, there's your Sharpie written, okay? You use a lead pencil, okay? And this one is 447 on M7. 447 frostbite. The other thing on labels that I always do is the date. And what is it today? 22?
21.
21? And yeah.
I'm usually happy with the year, just because, yeah, otherwise you think you're going to remember when you planted these trees, you just don't. So put the year on there at the very least.
Yeah. Now, we'll give you some more clues here. Assuming that your grafts take, when they take, then you can put it into a pot or put it into your vegetable garden, plant it so that the top root is only covered by an inch of soil, and baby it. Okay?
What does that mean?
That means don't let your dog chew it.
Oh.
Don't let your goat chew it.
Oh.
Don't let your sheep won't probably chew it anyway. But
Oh,
don't
yeah,
let
they
the
eat
bulls-
those right down to the ground.
The sheep.
Oh,
will.
yeah.
Okay, so
They
watch
have not read the books that say they don't eat
for
wood.
those toothy sheep. And then If you need to put a cage around it to keep voles and bunnies off, do that. But you're going to want this tree, grafted tree, to grow up about 3 feet before it goes into its final position. Okay? Because there's another problem with little baby tree that's only this tall going out into a field or your backyard. That
Grass grows
might
way
not
faster
be- yeah, might not be mowed that often, or if it is mowed, then you have the hazard called mower blight.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I've had that before.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so somebody comes along who isn't totally sure where the actual trees are planted.
Or you've just pointed out where the tree is and not to mow over it, and they do it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that that's happened to me or anything.
Or anything. Not that you're still bitter.
No, I am not bitter.
Okay. That is a cleft graft, all right? I'm going to show one more thing because people are going to eventually run into this. If you read catalogs, you're going to see this. And this gizmo is a grafting tool.
What?
Yeah, I know. It's a grafting tool. And what it has is it has this blade right here that's V-shaped.
Oh, look
Okay.
at there.
A V-shaped blade. And what it does is it makes this V-shaped cut. I'm going to use this one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here's your, we'll call this the root. And put your twig into the grafting tool so that it's right, the center of the blade hits the center of the stem, just like that.
Okay.
Okay. And then clip it. And what happens is
Ooh.
you get this sort of cool and perfect cut, okay? And we're going to pretend this is the top now that you've cut off of something else. And you can just slide these together like so. And it looks especially awesome when they're the same.
Yeah, let's do one that's
With-
not the same.
You want
Oh,
it not the same? I
Yeah.
can do one that's
here, let's do one that's not the same. Because that makes it look even slicker than it is.
Yeah.
It is slick, but that's cheater, pumpkin eater.
Yeah.
So you
okay.
do the scion and the rootstock. So the rootstock has the V, and the scion
It
has
doesn't
the
matter
U.
actually.
Oh, it doesn't.
No.
Okay.
It doesn't actually matter. It's just that your
One's
twigs have to both be pointing up.
What does
Okay.
pointing up mean?
Pointing up means, see all these buds are pointing there like an arrow. head.
Oh,
Okay,
looky
they
there.
point up.
Ah,
And see, these are also having a, where's my other one?
oh, you
There
were
it
gonna
is.
put that in upside down, weren't you?
And I was grabbing it, but
Yeah.
now I had to look to make sure that the pointing up and pointing up happens. Okay.
Let's go up.
And in order to do this, so that everybody's pointing up, I have to cut this in the other direction.
Yeah. I've never grafted trees with the buds going down.
Never?
Never. Never will I admit it.
I see. All right.
There we go. Now the buds are pointing in the right direction.
Everybody's up and up,
Everybody's up and up.
and this fits together like so, and it gives you a couple of nice edges here that can heal. And I'm only lining up one side all the way. You see how we have some sticky outy?
Yeah, because the two
Yeah.
sticks are not exactly
Not
the
exactly the
same diameter.
same, and they're slightly different colors. So that also helps you see the difference. Okay?
Yep.
Now, when these are this fat, this thick, they hold together pretty well, but that's a much smaller cut vertically than it is if you're doing whip and tongue.
Right.
And so it's harder, really harder if you have fat fingers to put the band on and hold it at the same time.
Ah.
Okay? So it's together, wrapping around the thumb, under the thumb, let go, roll it off.
Oh, she makes it look so easy.
Well, it is after a while.
Yeah, after how many
Practice
thousand?
about 1 billion.
Oh, a
times, yeah.
billion.
At
So,
least.
okay, a
Yeah.
billion.
Yeah.
No problemo.
So Deb,
And-
do you use that tool because it's so cool, or do you still use the knife?
I bring the tool with me to grafting classes because I have so few people who have any knife confidence,
Yeah.
and they think all of a sudden that their problems will be solved by this tool. So I bring it along and show people how to use it, just, you know, so that they won't be all like depressed. Okay? So
I have one of those, and if I'm just grafting, you know, a few trees, frankly, it's easier for me to just do the whip and tongue. If I'm doing 100 trees, I'll use the tool. But like Deb said, the thicker the diameter, the better the tool works. A really thin diameter, it doesn't work at all. So you kind of, how much do those tools cost? They're a little spendy.
I've seen them for about $35, and I've seen most of them for $60 or $90.
Okay.
So
it depends on how crazy you want to get with grafting.
Yeah.
Whether it's worth the investment for you. Questions?
I have something for people to do and think about as they're asking their last questions. But to all people, oh, hi, this is Federica, by the way.
Hi, Federica.
Hi. To all people who tuned in for this, if you want to find the chat function and throw your email address in there, I can get out more information like the PowerPoint and other handouts to you all, as well as the recording that we're taking of this. And we do have more rootstock for purchasing, right, Cindy?
We do. We have more of all the rootstock. We have pear, semi-dwarf pear, the M7 apple, and the Antonovka. There's some at the Claire Nelson Center in Finland, and there's some at my place on Homestead Road. So if you still want to, and we still have a lot of scions. So if you still want to get, rootstock and scions, they are still available.
Cool. Yeah. So we'll send out some more information about that to all of you, because there's more people that joined via the Facebook link, I think. So that's awesome.
Awesome. Yes. So
Kim and Charlie Dennison. Don't know Kim. Which Kim is it?
hi, Kim. Thanks for joining.
Cool.
Anybody
And
else?
I'm hoping we can have Deb show us the hoping she can show us a bud graft in August or something.
Oh yeah, we'll work on that. Yep. So this was our first attempt at a webinar. Thank you everybody for your patience. We know it wasn't perfect, but we thought it was pretty good. And
and it's great if you say that too.
yeah,
us.
yeah. And give us
No, it was really good. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
thank you, and we'll
Yeah, I
see you
got
all again on the next internet connection.